too. What is Hedron? Like, what can you tell us about it?
Yep. So it's actually like a couple smart contracts in a there's I think there's 3 of them technically, but really all it is there's the first part is something called hex staking instances, and I'll give you an analogy. It's kind of like there's a jar, like a glass jar. Sorry, my dog is playing with his toy, so it's a little background noise.
The dog's in the data center. We get it.
Yeah, he's throwing around the power cables. Yep. So basically, you can imagine like you know how you can take a hex stake today. You just go.hex.com and you can take some hex and you lock it up in the future 5555. This is similar, but what it is you take your hex and you put it in a little jar, and then you can lock it up 5555 or however long you want. It could be less, and then you have it's like hex stake in a jar. And then what you can do with this jar is the jar you can turn into an NFT, and then it becomes tradable. So then I could send the jar, I can send you my hex stake, and now it's in your MetaMask wallet. And then you can go and you can open the jar, and now it's yours in your wallet. So this
really kind of solved the problem, because so you could make a stake on a MetaMask account with a private key, and then sell it to someone, however you want, and then they'll have it. But this is like, instead of doing that, like that's like, a whole bunch of moving parts. Instead of doing that, you put it in this jar, you basically make an NFT, and then you trade it like you would any other NFT or tokens.
Yep, pretty much. Yep. Very cool. So now with that technology, with these HSIs, now you can transfer a hex stake from one wallet to another. It doesn't but that's it for that part, right? That's all it does. So the stake is locked. That's in for the 5555. You could emergency end stake it if you wanted and face the penalty, but even if I trade it to you, now you just own the hex stake. So because there was some people were talking about how they thought it was going to be pretty bearish for the price, and I think it was kind of bullish, because I think it just took a bunch of hex off the market. It put them in the people made more stakes because of it. So I think it was cool and fine. So that's one. So that's like the main function of Hedron. Then there's also the coin itself. So Hedron is an ERC20 token, and you can get these tokens every day for free for how many T shares you have. So, and it's actually based on your B shares. For every 1 B share, which is 1,000th of a T share, for every one of those you have, you get 1 Hedron every day, and you can go and you can mint them, and then it gives you your Hedron, and that's cool. So that's how you can mine it. And then this is where it gets advanced. This is like where it gets into advanced users only, and you could do some damage here.
Warning, with galaxy brains.
Yeah. This is like where it's like, all right, you got to be careful here. So what you can do is with those hex jars, with your stake locked up in there, you can pre-mint or pre-mine all of your Hedron, and it'll give it to you now as a loan. So you're basically, if you, instead of waiting the 555, it's like, I'll have all my Hedron now. And then you have to pay it back monthly. You have to pay back your loan because you borrowed it ahead of time. So here's what happens. If you don't pay your loan, if you don't pay back the Hedron every 30 days, if you're delinquent for 3 months, what happens is your jar with all that hex that you had inside of it, that gets taken away from you and sent to the auction house. And then other people can bid on those jars using Hedron. So theoretically, if you didn't pay your bill and your hex jar got repossessed, some other Hedron whale or anybody who wanted can go to the auction house and start bidding on it, and you might lose your jar. So
interesting.
That's where it gets really advanced, is when do you want to borrow? Then you got to pay it back. You don't want to get liquidated. And then you've got people who are going to be on the auction house trying to snipe bids and buy these jars for hopefully less than what they cost.
Yeah, so you talked about, you were excited about that recently because there were some coming up.
Yeah, there's already a jar like coming up, man. it's like 30 grand worth of hex. The opening bid is $300 worth of Hedron. That's how the bidding's going to start. So man, if it's like 2 a.m. on like a Sunday and everybody's sleeping and passed out, you might be able to go on there and snipe a hex stake for a fraction of the cost. It might cost you a couple grand, and you could end up buying a multi-$1,000 hex stake. So it's I'm super bullish on that. Once the auction house opens, I will speculate and predict that the price of Hedron will definitely start to increase because people are going to want it once they realize they can use it at the auction house.
So is that the biggest fundamental for Hedron? Is the auction house aspect?
In my opinion, yeah. Because I want to buy those hex jars. I want to buy those because I'm minting my own Hedron every day for all my T shares and B shares. So I've got all this free Hedron. So yeah, I can't wait to spend it at the auction house. And then the winner, whoever wins the jar in the auction house, whatever they spent, all that Hedron that they put in to buy it, that gets burnt and deleted. So if it was a very big, expensive, let's like $20,000 of Hedron goes into the auction house to win a hex stake, then boom, that Hedron's deleted. So over time, you're going to see Hedron being burnt and burnt and burnt. So that's bullish too.
Wow. Yeah, because there's quite a bit of it. So I guess the more auctions they are, the more is burned.
Yeah.
And the bigger the prices are, the more that's burned. Yeah. So that's kind of like combating the bonus rounds, I guess, too, because there's people got in the first week or so, they got a 10x. What the people are getting now are at like a 1x or 2x.
Or that's almost over. Yep.
Yeah. Wow. Very interesting. So got a question here. KFK said that you can't claim Hedron after you end the stake, and no one said anything on that show. So you can't claim Hedron. Yeah, you going to address that?
Yep. So it's true. You can only mint Hedron while your hex stake is still active.
Yep.
But there's a trick. You can take a hex stake and you can put it in good accounting, and you can mint your last day of Hedron. But if you have a hex stake and you unlock it and you undo your hex stake, but you didn't mint your Hedron first, your stake is gone because you ended it. So now when you go to Hedron, it's vanished. So you got to mint your Hedron before you end your hex stake.
Okay. And is there any I think the question I had on Hedron was, the only thing I didn't quite understand is people say, oh, just claim the bonus now and wait later to mint it. So what is the strategy for, why wouldn't you just mint it? Say you got a 5, 10, 15-year stake. Why wouldn't you mint it every year, for example? Is that just the tax implications of whatever, you need to keep more records of that kind of stuff, or like what is the benefit into never minting it until the last day, or good accounting to get the last day in versus minting it periodically throughout your stakes?
Yeah, that's a great question. This is a little like a little known feature of Hedron. If people borrow Hedron against their jars and they pre-mint all their Hedron, if more than half of all the Hedron existence is borrowed Hedron, then that kicks in something called the AMR bonus. And what that does is it gives everybody a Hedron minting bonus because more than half the supply is borrowed. So what happens is if you go to mint your Hedron, there's an additional multiplier. And the more of the supply that's borrowed, let's say it's like 75% of all the Hedron in existence actually came from borrowed jars, then everybody who goes to mint your Hedron on that day, you're going to get a ridiculous bonus. I forget the numbers that it could max out at, but it's a lot. It's like it's multiples. So that's one reason why people aren't waiting to mint, and they only claimed because they're hoping that this bonus kicks in the future, maybe in a couple of years. I find it very unlikely, to be honest. I don't think it's ever going to turn on because so much has already been
quite
minted.
A bit.
Yeah, and they'll never catch up because borrowing does not give you the 10x bonus. So all the guys like me who claimed all their hex stakes in like day one, I got a 10x bonus forever. So like I can mint more Hedron than like people will ever be able to borrow like ever. So like nice. So I would never count on the AMR bonus. I don't think it's ever going to activate, but it could happen. Who knows?
Okay, so that's one reason people may be thinking that. Otherwise, yeah, it's just like, why not?
Otherwise, whenever you want.
The only other I guess the price of Hedron up and down could affect
gas price
stuff too. Gas price,
yeah, that's the big one for me. Is like, I think it's if you catch it on a Sunday night, it's only like $10 to do a mint. So that's not bad, but it's not great. If I got like 100 hex stakes times $10, that's $1,000. And then like what I got, like maybe I made $1,000 a Hedron, maybe.
Yeah, so. I see myself doing that too, like looking at, okay, what's the Hedron price? How much can I mint? How much is gas right now? And like making that kind of decision.
So. Yeah. And then you're like, oh shit, that gas is like 50% of my like profit or margin. You're like, that's not worth it, man. That's PulseChain is going to change that. I'm very bullish for Hedron on PulseChain because you can mint every day and it'll cost you like dust, like a fraction of a penny. So I'll just keep mining Hedron, keep minting every 24 hours, mint and mint and mint, and then swap or maybe provide liquidity on PulseX perhaps, so I can mine incentive token. I think PulseChain is really going to turn Hedron around as far as price goes and usability.